everyone. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. It's good to have each of you here today as we get into some training on cyber bullying prevention, more particularly protecting our children or whoever is being bullied. All right, so before I go any further, just allow me to acknowledge some of our guests here today. I guess most of you are guests anyway, but I'm sure I have each of you covered. First and foremost, I would like to mention Dr. Kenroy Burke, who is our presenter this afternoon. He's the managing consultant at Exusia Consultancies. Also, I would like to acknowledge Mrs. Orlandette Crabb, who is the Chief Education Officer in the Ministry of Education, Youth and Sports. And also Mr. Kendall Bob, who works in the Family and Juvenile Unit of the Royal Virgin Islands Police Force. And you'll be hearing more from these people as we go along. Now, without any further delay, and we really apologize for the late start, I would like to call on Mr. Wendell Ballantyne to come with the invocation.
Stand with me as we pray. Heavenly Father, we gather today with a grateful heart. God, we are grateful for the opportunity where we can come in a spirit of learning and growth. God, we invite your presence here with us today in this seminar. God, grant us the spirit of wisdom, knowledge, and understanding. Bless, O God, our speaker today with clarity and inspiration. God, we pray that you will bless each and everyone who gathered here today from the respective departments, Lord God, in the mighty name of Jesus. We pray, Lord God, that you would have your divine way throughout this seminar. In Jesus' mighty name I pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you so much. You may be seated. Now, at this time, I would like to call on our very able Minister Emerald Pemberton to come. She's the education director in this church, to come and give the welcome and opening remarks. You could put your hands together. You could give her a little clap.
Good morning. I acknowledge the protocol that has been so ably established. Good morning again. Good afternoon, I'm sorry. I'm back in time. The advancement of digital technology not only creates new developments in social media, messaging platforms, gaming platforms, and mobile phones, but they are evolving, associating unwanted behaviors as well. Young people are at a risk for deviant behaviors such as scaring and angering others or shaming, spreading lies, posting embarrassing pictures of someone on social media, sending hurtful or threatening messages are among some of the common traits used to humiliate others. According to one of UNESCO's leading advocates on child protection, Ford, he said, and I quote, 30 years after the adoption of the Convention on the Rights of the Child and the creation of the World Wide Web, it is time for governments, families, academia, and other private sectors to put children and young people at the center of digital policies by protecting them from the worst the internet has to offer and expanding access to its best. We can each help tip the balance for good. On this backdrop of this statement, there is an urgent call for child protection authorities and advocates of the BVI to implement the necessary policies and guidelines to address these current issues. For this reason, the church and all of us here today are playing a critical role in the community's awareness to tackle these unwanted social challenges. On behalf of Bishop and Lady Cousins, the leadership and members of the New Testament Church of God, it is my distinct pleasure to welcome you this afternoon to this timely seminar, hoping that the training received today would catapult us to bring about a meaningful community transition. Please absorb as much as you can from the presentation of our dear Dr. Bishop Kenroy Burke. Welcome.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Minister Pemberton. Now, earlier when I started out, I said I had everybody covered. So I did the main ones first, but today I would also like to welcome, if you're a part of any of these groups, we appreciate having you here today. If you're an educator, if you're from the Social Development Department, if you are from a school, the BVI HSA, you are an advocate, and of course, we have media personnel in the form of Miss Kathy Richards from JTV. So I would like each of you to feel welcome as we get into this program today. Now, at this time, I would like to invite Mrs. Orlandette Crabb to come and give us some brief remarks.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon, everybody. I adopt the protocol that has been established. On behalf of the Ministry of Education, Youth Affairs, and Sports, I wish to extend our heartfelt gratitude to the New Testament Church of God for hosting this timely and meaningful initiative focused on cyberbullying prevention. We especially acknowledge the leadership of Bishop Cousins and the Education Director, also known as Nurse Pemberton, who, when she calls me, I don't care how busy I am, I have to drop what I'm doing and come. Today's event is a vital act of service to our community. In this digital age, where our students are increasingly immersed in online spaces, the risks they face are growing. The conversation we are having today is urgent and necessary. Cyberbullying is a silent but deeply damaging form of abuse. Unlike traditional bullying, cyberbullying follows our children home. It enters into their bedrooms, their private thoughts and moments, and their most vulnerable spaces through the very devices that we have come to rely on for learning and access to opportunity. Its impacts are profound: increased anxiety and depression, decreased self-confidence and esteem, self-doubt and embarrassment, withdrawal from friends and school, academic decline, self-harm, and tragically, in some cases, suicidal ideations. Data collected from secondary schools across this territory for the period January to April 2025 reveals that over 80% of conflicts that occur within school walls had their origins in the digital space, whether through social media exchanges, group chats, direct messages, or other online interactions. These are all driving real-world tensions and violence among our youth. It is clear that what happens online doesn't stay online. It directly impacts classroom culture, student relationships, and ultimately school safety. As educators and adults who care for young people, we cannot afford to ignore this crisis. Our responsibility is not only to protect the physical safety of our students, but to safeguard their emotional and psychological well-being in both real and virtual spaces. This requires coordinated action, such as this session today, from schools, churches, homes, government, and civic institutions. Today's training serves as a critical reminder. Cyberbullying is not simply a technological issue, it is a child protection issue. It requires that we are proactive, informed, and compassionate in our responses. Let us leave here not only with information, but with a renewed sense of purpose. Let us be vigilant in monitoring online behavior, intentional in cultivating digital responsibility, and bold in confronting abuse wherever it may arise. Once again, the Ministry of Education wholeheartedly thanks the New Testament Church of God for providing this platform for education and dialogue. May your continued partnership lead to safer, stronger, and more resilient communities for every child. Thank you, and have an enlightening session.
All right, thank you, Mrs. Crabb. You can do better than that. I know it's lunchtime, some of us fasting, but yes, we need to feel some more energy. All right, so at this time, Detective Inspector Kendolph Bob, who is from the Family and Juvenile Unit in the Royal Virgin Islands Police Force. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you. Good afternoon to everyone. I adopt the protocol which had already been established. On behalf of Acting Commissioner Jacqueline Vanderpool and senior ranks of the Royal Virgin Islands Police Force, I'm here today to speak to you that bullying is a serious issue that continues to affect young people, particularly school-age children. So bullying involves repetitive, intentional harming of one person or group of another, where there is an imbalance of power in the relationship. Bullying can take many forms. Physical, which we see quite often with fights among school children or their peers at schools, where injuries are involved, sometimes weapons are being used, and the police are being called in to settle disputes. Verbal, which is the use of offensive language, swearing or cursing at each other. Psychological or emotional, using words or action to exert power and control, causing emotional harm. Sexual, which is inappropriate sexual behavior or gestures towards a victim. And the one I want to speak more about today is the online cyberbullying. It is a rapid growing and particularly concerning form of bullying, which I will now expand on. So cyberbullying is any form of bullying conducted through electronic devices such as computers, smartphones, tablets, or gaming consoles. It often takes place on social media platforms and can include hurtful or threatening messages, sexual images, images of weapons, sexual content, or degrading memes. Cyberbullying has become more widespread because it happens anywhere, at any time. So we can see children in the BVI being bullied online by someone residing in Trinidad, Barbados, the UK, or anywhere. So there's no specific place, no specific time when it comes to cyberbullying. And that is a very concern for us as law enforcement to able to control, because it is not as the same as the physical bullying that we see at the school on a daily basis. It invades a child's personal space, affecting their social life, both online and offline, because it is not confined to school grounds or hours. It poses unique challenges for parents, educators, and law enforcement. Let me be clear. Currently, there are no specific laws in the British Virgin Islands that directly governs bullying or cyberbullying of children. However, children involved in such acts may find themselves on the wrong side of the law. They could face criminal charges under our criminal code or the Computer Misuse or Cybercrime Act. These legislations were never intended to target children, but in the absence of more suitable legal provisions, it may be used when matters becomes severely serious. This is not an ideal solution. So, however, we do our best on a daily basis to cope with what is happening with our children. I will share some statistics of what we have seen for the past 3 years of cases of online or cyberbullying of our children. And these forms child sexual exploitation or online grooming, cyberbullying threats, online blackmailing to sextortions, possession of child sexual exploitation materials. So in 2023, we have 19 cases which are under investigations. Some of them are where children are already being charged. In 2024, we saw 14 of the same cases. And in 2025, so far, 5 cases have been laid so far to the police. So in grand total for the last 3 years, we have seen 38 cases. So again, as I reiterate that we faces a major challenges due to limited resources, personally to effectively address cyberbullying and other cases. Once harmful messages or images is shared, the damage is already done, and removing it from social media can be very difficult as there are no legal control over these platforms. So the social media platforms such as Facebook, TikTok, and you know most of them, we in the BVI do not have any control over such platform to sometimes ask them to take down such images. We sometimes rely on our international partners to assist, the FBI or the Scotland Yard unit from the UK. The response of the Royal Virgin Islands Police stands in solidarity with other key stakeholders, including the Ministry of Education, Health and Social Services, to promote a multi-agency approach to tackle cyberbullying. Together we aim to educate and sensitize children and youths in schools and other institutions about the dangers of bullying, with a special focus, as I said before, on cyberbullying, which is becoming the trend for young people in their behavior. Only through collective efforts can we ensure that young people are protected, empowered, and equipped to navigate the digital world safely and responsibly. The question might ask, why might someone bully the other? Sometimes based on our conversations with these young people, they are considered to be peer pressured, experience bullying themselves, prejudice held against certain persons or group of people, which we sometimes refer to as hate crime, low esteem or low self-esteem, used to a culture of bullying and aggression, fear of missing out, problems at home which they are experiencing, such as domestic violence and all other forms of violence within their home. Today, I thank you, your testament, all the team that is involved for such a wonderful training such as this, where the police can be involved so that we can work together, continue to work together to eradicate some of what we have been experiencing or seeing with our children, in our schools especially, and at home where they have time to do all that is necessary when it comes to cyberbullying. So once again, thank you for inviting me.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Inspector Bob. Well, you know, while he was speaking, I was listening very carefully, and he said that there was no law in the Virgin Islands that would protect people from, you know, cyberbullying and such. And I know that we're focusing on children today, but recently in the US, there was a law enacted, the Take It Down Act. And I think, you know, we need to catch up. We need to play catch up. All right, so guess what? It's time for the word. Right? We'll be hearing from Dr. Kenroy Burke. At this time, he's a trainer of trainers, and he's with UNICEF in this regard. Could you put your hands together and welcome him?
Good afternoon. I too wish to acknowledge the protocol that has already been established and to press ahead, because I know that there are some of you who came out of your workspace to be with us. I would want you to be able to get as much as possible. And then generally, I don't want to be too long to bore you. So I want to share with you. It's great to see some faces, familiar faces from our last session in March. And for those who were not here, I want to welcome you to this session this afternoon. As was said, this afternoon we're going to look briefly, and this is a sensitization session. So the difference between what we would want to call a workshop or training and a sensitization session is that I'm exposing you to information. Unfortunately, with sensitization sessions, and they're based obviously on the length of time that you have to present, there are some things that will be left hanging that you will want to know a little bit more about. So we will never be able to cover a topic of this nature in 2 hours, 3 hours. In fact, sometimes not even in a whole day, we are able to cover a topic of this nature. But what I would want to suggest to you is that you get some information. I'm going to be shooting some documents to our Minister Pemberton that she is able to pass out to you. But then there's some information that is there. But there's some information that is here that unfortunately I can't share with you the full document, because until UNICEF publishes it and releases it, there's a possibility that anything can change. So I don't want to be the person who is responsible, especially in these cyber ages. They may trace it back to me. I want to commend the agencies that are here. And I was able to report on the last training. Even as I was sitting there, I was sharing some information with one of my colleagues from UNICEF who got me into this in the first place.
And it is commendable the effort that I'm going to speak from the BVI perspective, because I know that there may be a couple persons from the US VA here, but for sure from the BVI perspective, it is commendable the efforts that you are making at making your territory a safer place for our children. And I think you need to be commended for that. You can put your hands together for that. Because trust me, as I do training, sometimes you wonder, where is the assistance that our children need? So I want to share some things with you, and I'm going to ask you to take out something that you can start to write. As was said earlier, cyberbullying is indeed a challenge. It is indeed a challenge. And the last report that was done, and let me try to get it up and running here. The last report that was done, the last draft summary, views on corporal punishment, sexual abuse, and juvenile offending across 8 Caribbean countries. And in the BVI, these are the statistics that would have been found. They did some stats on corporal punishment. I shared some of those the last time that I was here. They did some, again, on child sexual abuse. You got more updated information. And they also took the opportunity to do some research on cyberbullying. And listen to what the research is saying. The research is saying, and these are the views of age of consent, etc. The research is saying around a third, 32% of respondents said that personally they knew of a child who had been subjected to cyberbullying. That's a third of your the population. And 82% of respondents considered cyberbullying, which may have a sexual component, to be a problem. So they're believing that it's a problem. 44% say that it's a major one. Another third personally knew of a case of cyberbullying. Again, higher than the average of 21%. 6 in 10 believe that the police could investigate and charge someone. Perceptions again. 6 out of 10. 60% persons say that they believe the police actually know who's responsible and can investigate and charge someone. While a further 27% argue that the police could investigate and charge, but would not. Everybody's with me? Perceptions. Perceptions. And here we are hearing that it is extremely difficult to do since the laws are restrictive. So here are some of the things that I want to share with you today. I'm going to start at the very basic point, and you got some information there before. We're going to look a little bit as we look into the learning objectives. I think there's a pointer here for me. Yes. And yes, there I am going to be moving. We're going to look at some of the outcomes, understand cyber abuse and cyberbullying, identify perpetrators and victims, empower caregivers, develop church initiatives, promote digital responsibility, and build collaborative solutions. So then, what is cyber abuse? Cyber abuse refers to the use of digital platforms and technologies, such as social media, text messages, emails, or websites, to intentionally harm, control, manipulate, or exploit another person. So take note in this, there's a lot of intent. Everybody's with me? There's a lot of intent. There's an intent there. While it shares similarities with cyberbullying, cyber abuse tends to be more severe. It is a lot more intense because it is very intentional. It is persistent, and it often navigates around the whole concept of power and control. So the abuser's focus is to control, to take control of the victim, whatever the nature of the abuse is. I want to take control of the victim. It involves also a pattern of abusive behaviors online that can escalate over time. So it may start just at a comment that was made on a post. I don't know how many of you have ever seen this. A comment that was made on a post. And think about this too from the perspective of adults too. Some adults are abused online. I think we know that we are talking primarily about children, but there are adults that are abused. So you put probably a political view right there online, something that you believe. And right under somebody starts to go at you. So they make a statement and you respond. And 2 weeks later, y'all are still back and forth. Because this person isn't letting up, then they start to sound angry in their tone. You can tell some of the messages begin to sound angry and it sounds almost violent. Like if they see you somewhere, they'll just knock you over. And you start to feel uncomfortable because you know when it has crossed a line. Everybody knows that. The key is knowing when it has crossed a line. Knowing when this thing that started innocently, this thing that seemed as though it was okay, is now a little further, and the aim is now to name and shame and do all kind of different things to make you look less of a person, and before you know it, you are caught in an abusive, listen to this word, relationship. So we think that only relationships between a husband and wife or man, partners, but it is a relationship. Why is it a relationship? Because the two of you are relating to each other. And sometimes it starts very innocently. Recently, I found out that there are several children who are actually creating chats in school. I don't know if it is prevalent here. They create chats outside of. So yes, there are parent chats, and those parent chats serve the purpose. Sometimes I think that parents want to use those chats to be abusive. So many times it ends up not being a chat, but just a broadcast, because teachers obviously try to manage that experience. But what you find is, unfortunately, in these chats, there's a whole lot that's happening, and we have absolutely no idea what's taking place. So we have situations where children are being abused on a continuous basis. They are at school and they're being abused and bullied right there in front of them. They're being abused. But when they go home, the abuse continues right there online in a WhatsApp chat. They're not saying anything to their parents. They're not saying anything to their teachers. They're trying to deal with it on their own. They come to school. They're very aggressive. They seem as though they're not focused in class. They always seem as though they're in some sort of argument with another child. But we have absolutely no idea that the real action is happening here. Everybody's with me? The real action is happening here. And unfortunately, many of those children are laboring under it because they don't know what to do. They don't have any responses. I don't think that there are too many parents that I've met in my lifetime that have taken the time to teach their children how to deal with bullying. I don't think so. I tried today to imagine how many parents have actually seen. I know one guy for sure told his son that anytime someone tries to bully you, lock your two fingers and poke them in the eye. That was his advice. But I don't know how many of you have, as parents, have ever actually sat down and intentionally taught your children how to deal with any type of abuse or any type of bullying. Yeah. You may have, because you're exposed to the information and it has really caught your attention and you think you need to do something preventative. But generally it isn't the case, because most parents don't even consider it as an issue until, unfortunately, it is an issue. You with me? So prevention, we say, is better than cure. But unfortunately, many times when we've actually gotten we've been exposed to this, let me say it this way. Unfortunately, it's just coming down to the school to sit in a meeting with the principal to have a discussion about your child's behavior. Your child's behavior that unfortunately you don't see at home. Because it's not happening at home, it's happening right there in the school. And when it happens at home, it's online, so they're not They're not sharing those things with you because remember, they don't want you to get into their online experience. Most children would rather you not get involved in what's happening on their cell phones. Most children. So that's the harrowing part of it. So what I've noted is a few characteristics of this abuse. And this is what will make it abuse, really. Other than that, you have to pull back and wonder exactly what is the dynamic. But this is what makes it abuse. It's persistent harassment. Persistent harassment. It's often sustained efforts to torment the victim. Repeated messages every single where they go. And as I said to you, it transitions from the face-to-face bullying to the online platform, whatever that online platform is. If you only use WhatsApp, your children are very likely to call you an old head because you think that that's the only place that conversations are taking place. But conversations are taking place in Snapchat. Conversations are taking place in Discord. You've heard about that? They're children with Twitter accounts. X. So conversation is taking place in X. Conversations are taking place in all of these places that you have absolutely no idea about. But the only thing you know is WhatsApp. And you went to the phone, you checked the phone, and you didn't see anything in WhatsApp. Some of you are a little embarrassed now to even ask me, why those things you're talking about? Please take some time to actually go into your app store on your phone and check them out, and you'll see that there are several different apps that can be used, social media apps that can be used, and the children are using them because, sorry to say sometimes, but those who create them are irresponsible enough to create greater privacies on them, etc., than even the WhatsApp. It is much easier to hack into a WhatsApp account than it is to hack into several of the other accounts. So they're using them to their own benefit, but unfortunately also to their own demise. And they're in WhatsApp chats and Twitter chats and all these different things that are, let me tell you this, they're international. They're chatting with children all across, at least they think they're children. And they're chatting with children all across the nations of the world. They're involved in conversations. The other day I was talking to my son, and my son was telling me about his friend that is in St. Lucia. I had no idea he had a friend that was in St. Lucia, but he's a swimmer. So he met the guy when he was in St. Lucia, and they talk and things like that about swimming. And when they go to swimming, then in the international meets, they see each other and they say, "Oh, you doing?" I'm knocking and all these different things. And I'm saying to myself, how did he even know him? Because they no longer need to write a letter to a pen pal. Some of us are still stuck there. I never saw him ask me for a stamp. They don't need stamps anymore. You with me? They have all the exposure that they can have to anybody across the world. But here's the challenge. Anybody across the world also has all the exposure that they need to get to them. Have you ever wondered how so many free apps survive? There's an underworld to free apps. You know that? And information shares and those kind of things. So all those things are happening in their world, and we need to be able to navigate it. Because if we don't understand it, we too will struggle with being able to assist them. So this is where the greatest challenge is. So while it shares a lot of similarities with cyberbullying, abuse tends to be more severe, persistent, and often includes elements, I said earlier, of what? Power and control. So there's a whole lot of power and control taking place there. I think I did not flip when I was starting to talk to you about the characteristics. So persistent in harassment, power and control, mention that again. Unlike just bullying, There are a whole set of different tactics now that are used for the abuse, dominating the victim. Before you know it, the person is in full brainwash mode. That child is in full brainwash mode. In fact, sometimes I've actually seen cases where they are now fighting their parents and family to maintain the relationship with this person. They don't see anything that the person is doing as harmful in any way. But a lot of this, the backstory to this is a lot of grooming also that takes place. So they build a wonderful relationship. It starts innocently and they build a wonderful relationship online. In fact, I want to suggest this to you, that some of you started talking to someone. You know what I mean when I say talking to someone, getting into a relationship just from sitting and messaging. And after a day, suddenly you were in love. No need for confession. Imagine then what is going to happen to that child who feels as though now they're getting all this attention. Feeling good about the attention that they're getting. Feeling good about all the nice things that are being said. And in many cases, actually believing that the person may very well be their age. I want to say this to you. Abuse happens within age groups too. So don't be fooled. In classes, it could be very abusive. But many times it's someone who is behind the profile. Might be an adult that is behind the profile and is creating an abusive relationship that is working for their benefit. And they're grooming them to the place where before you know it, they will probably go and meet this person. It's probably going to get there. The more they do it, the more it's going to possibly get there. Very seldom will you find someone online chatting with someone who is not actually interested in meeting the person. Many times I travel and there are persons who are on Facebook with me and I notice persons on Facebook. But then I turn up somewhere and the person says, "Hi, I'm your Facebook friend." And I'm like, "Oh yeah. What's your name again?" Not that I'm, totally clueless to every single one. But when you have a couple thousand people online as Facebook friends, it is very, very unlikely that you're going to be able to recognize that person. So think about it. If this person recognizes me, of all those people that are my friends, I have to start to feel special. Not so? Yeah. He's always liking my posts. And you're starting to feel special about it, not realizing that it's now going to the stage now of manipulation and coercion. So they're going to start to get manipulative and try their very best to get into your space. They're going to coerce you to do certain things. The abuser may use that manipulation to achieve certain outcomes, things that they want. Things that they want. They will watch the post. They will check everything about you. They will see your vulnerabilities. They may say to you, "I saw today how so-and-so dealt with you. I would never do that." Or, "I saw how this person spoke to you. I would never speak to you that way." And immediately they tap into the vulnerabilities. They study. It is like those professional burglars who sit and they watch every move of the businessman. How he drops off, when he drops off, they're watching every single move so that they can then pounce on the right occasion. It's the same thing that's happening right there in cyberspace. Everybody's with me? At any point in time, feel free to raise a hand and to ask a question. Any point in time. But it's the same thing, or even to make a contribution. It's the same thing that's happening in that space continuously. Now, the thing about the abuse too is that there's an emotional and psychological harm that starts to take place. Its aim is to cause significant emotional distress or trauma. That's the abuse. Leading to feelings of fear, anxiety, and depression. This type of abuse can have lasting effects on the victim's mental health. Something that we are currently faced with as educators, we're faced with as persons who are in any kind of ministry dealing with children, is that several of our children have mental health issues that they're battling. You're aware of that? You're no longer just, quote unquote, teaching the child. Many years ago, probably you were just teaching the child, but no, you're not just teaching the child. There are several mental health issues that children are walking through on a daily basis that you also have to be able to navigate. So you start to see certain changes and etc. But there are persons too who also prey on those mental health issues. You with me? They're preying on those mental health issues because it is beneficial to them. Now, it is amazing sometimes how evil works, because people are going to sit down and do this thing on a daily, study their behaviors, check them out, make sure that they know exactly what they're battling with, and then pray on it. Work at making sure that they can tap into it. Remember, it's abusive. I like to define abuse as abnormal use of something. So from the time it becomes abnormal use, it's abuse. And that's exactly what they're doing. Then there's also the aspect of exploitation. Cyber abusers may engage in online exploitation, such as financial scams and those kind of things. Those things are taking place. So take note, we haven't spoken anything really sexual as yet, because sometimes that's where our minds are, just in the sexual realm. But cyber abuse can also be someone who has set up an entire website just to rob people, just to take your finances. They do all kind of different scams, and they're just trying their very best to rob you, to take all the finances that you have. All of that is abuse. You with me? All that is abuse. Let me pause to say sometimes it is sad that the laws have not yet caught up, right? Because there are some things that we could probably do a whole lot better in prevention. Sometimes I believe the laws are downstream, but the laws are downstream, and yet they have not been able to do sometimes the job that you need, because there will always be a select few who can beat the system. But if they beat the system upstream, they shouldn't be able to beat the system downstream and walk away scot-free. You agree? Unfortunately, that happens sometimes. Yes. He's coming. We want to hear you, so he's coming with him.
Good morning. How effective do you think awareness in the school in terms of really bringing similar information to the schools at a level where they will understand will be effective in stopping some of these issues, like the predator and the exploitations, etc.
How effective? Sensitization is effective at every single level. You see, we live in a culture that we believed, we were taught this: if you talk about it, it will become a problem. So many parents avoided certain conversations. What we call the birds and the bees, that's how that came up, because nobody really wanted to call it what it was. And they avoided certain things so that they would not have to face it, because they believed that if they talked about it, it would open up curiosity, and then suddenly children would get involved. I want to suggest this to you, that children will know about it whether you talk about it or not. Everybody's with me? So it is usually best for them to know about it in the right atmosphere. And the school setting is by far the best atmosphere. Outside of the home and church, I can't think of another institution that we would want to do something in this, like this. And I believe this is critical. Children need to know about it. But I think that it might very well be a part of things like HFLE training and those kind of things. Health and family life training, etc. I think that the schools are now embracing that and working with it. We have the chief here. I'm not sure if she might want to make a statement on that to give you a little assurance. Microphone.
In addition to what you mentioned, these things are also covered as part of our counseling program here in the local school system, in the public school system. So counselors in their classroom visits would cover these things. While I would love to say that we capture everybody, sometimes I personally feel like the information is shared too late, because by the time they get to secondary, some of them have already been exposed to cyberbullying and abuse. So that's something that we have to evaluate.
Good afternoon. I'm wondering what we're missing in the parenting of our children, that their default position is to seek attention from persons that they've never even met. There's something fundamentally wrong there. I don't know.
Very, very serious question. What are we missing? I want to sum it up like this. We're missing relationship. We're missing relationship because we felt in the past that we should never ever build that type of relationship with our children. They should see us as the disciplinarians. They should see us as the boss in the household. But when you build a proper relationship with your child, they will still know who's in charge. You with me? They'll still know. Last night I was on the platform, and as soon as I put down the microphone, I finished sharing and I went and I took the microphone in. As soon as I put down the microphone, I saw a message come up, and it was my son saying, "Hey buddy, how are things going? Hey buddy, how are things going?" You with me? He was just at home and he thought about his dad, knowing his dad is overseas, and he just messaged me because we are working at building a relationship so that it should be comfortable at some point in time. Even if slightly awkward, it should be comfortable for him to be able to talk to me about certain issues. Because he knows now that we're buddies. He knows that I'm not going to go out there and tell everybody in the world what's happening with him. And he knows that we can talk. Everybody's with me? You don't wait until he becomes a man to have that type of relationship and walk around and say, "Man, my son's very tight." You do that from the time they're young so that as they grow up, they're able to share certain things with you. So we are now in a different space where I was talking to him the other day and he said, "But you know that I never learned about the birds and the bees with you. I did that online. I found out my information online." And that is the truth. Before you could even get to them to talk to them about certain things, they're finding the information that they need because the information is available. Unfortunately, a whole lot of the information is flawed. It is error. And they're hearing it from people who in many cases, there are social media influencers and things like that. They're hearing them from those persons and they're hearing it the wrong way. Parents, we need to get ahead of time and we need to build relationship. If most parents built relationships with their children, several of the problems that the schools are facing, they wouldn't face today. I just said it. I said it. I said it. I'm a former principal. I said it.
Yeah. And,
yeah, but we don't eat at the dining room table now. That's the problem. But we still do. We eat our breakfast at the dining room table, and we eat lunch on Sundays at the dining room table together because the dining room table matters. We might not talk all the business, but at least we're connecting. You with me? Relationship. Yes, please.
And on that note, as you spoke about relationship, we as parents have to understand, when your child comes to ask you a question, they already know the answer. So please, do not lie to them. As
so
much
true.
as uncomfortable, because I have an 11-year-old, so I know what I'm talking about. And when you train your child and you train your child well, there's nothing they will feel uncomfortable to come to you about. There are certain standards that I've set for my daughter. For example, we don't eat certain things. She knows that she's not supposed to take me. Up to this morning, her teacher offered her a candy, and she came downstairs to my class with the candy and asked if she can have it. Because that's what she was taught. They were planning some pool thing for the class. Now, she knows we don't use public pools. And she was one who stood up against it. So I have taught her that even if I'm not there, you have to learn to stand for yourself.
we don't drink sodas. And there was an incident where she went to, they had a function at school and the lunch was a soda. And then she came downstairs to me because she goes to the same school with $1. And I'm like, Mommy, they gave us soda and another child wanted it. So the child gave me $1. So I brought $1 so you could go buy Walmart and get me a juice. And I was really proud of her. So I think as parents, we have to set the tone for our children, because if we don't, the world is going to set it for them. And that is what is happening to our children. And as we were saying, with Miss Pratt being here, my child is getting ready to go to high school. You see this information here? I think we need a workshop for our children who are getting ready for high school, because this, if we realize, a lot of our children are stumbling when they get to high school. And we cannot wait when they get there to try to talk to them and train them the right way. So I think a session like this, we need our high school children to get ready.
Correct. Very good. Very good. One of the things that we did at the school that I was principal at is that and I was also class 4 teacher for a period of time. So that class 4 is the common entrance level, the entrance level into secondary school. We did these preparation sessions because we were in a different space. It was a private school. And in a private school, if you think that the other children are struggling, private school children could easily sink. I love the private school environment, but the private school environment is also a sheltered environment. And we were the very first school to be designated in the island a child-friendly school, but through UNICEF. That's how I actually got involved in the program. And that was a very scary space for many of our children who would leave having heard absolutely nothing. I'm talking about children run to me. One day I was at cricket and the child ran to me and he said, sir, that boy just cursed me. And I said, curse you? What did he say? He called me a bloke. A bloke. I'm thinking, bloke. And I'm like, ooh. You with me? So it really was not something that we would consider offensive in any way. But unfortunately, it was extremely offensive. Culture. Because of the culture that we created. This is a child, I mean, you have children who would find $1 on the ground and they would take it to their teacher and say, I found $1. So when they get to school, they will take out their money and rest it on the table and walk off because they think everybody's going to bring and come and pick up their money and say, here's your money. Yeah, are you with me? So you have to be able to train them for the realities of life. I saw the microphone again.
My other question had to do with, because we're talking about the victims, the persons who are on the receiving end. But obviously society is also creating abusers, right? And they're probably sitting in the same classrooms. And I just wonder about how the chips fall and how we have victims and we have abusers and they're both children. And why again? Why and how?
Yeah, and that's a deep-seated question that goes into a greater analysis, psychological analysis of everything too. Because both of them still have rights. That's the same conversation that I have to have when we're talking child sexual abuse and we're talking about forgiveness for the perpetrator. So when you start talking forgiveness for the perpetrator, very few people are there. You with me? Very few people are there. Very few. That's a door that is too narrow for so many to go through. So it's the same challenge there. Same challenge because they're children and you still have to protect their identity and those kind of things. Recently we had something that happened in Barbados. There were two young teenagers. One was 16, the other was less than 16, I don't know, 15, probably whatever. And they were going and burglarizing schools. So it's out there, so I can say it to you. They were burglarizing schools. And they were eventually caught. But the name of the 16-year-old is published. But if that other young man was what we call 15 and a half, everybody with me? His name is safe. And that's the challenge that you will face in these kind of situations. many times the victim is going to be well known. It happens differently as they get older because the accused is going to be published, but sometimes you will never hear anything about the victim. And the victim could be telling untruths, but you will never hear anything. But that's the nature of how the law is set up. So unfortunately, those persons, they will still, in many cases, coexist because our system does not allow you to be able to rip a child from the school just like that. And so it's a tricky thing. It's a very tricky thing. Hope that helps a little bit. Yeah. Then there's reputation damage. Cyber abuse also can involve the spreading of false or damaging information. Some of these can be covered under what we call the Defamation Act, but then in some cases, I think across the Caribbean now, I'm hearing about the Misuse Act, the Computer Misuse Act, and it is spreading all across the Caribbean, where if you put information about someone online, damaging information about that person, you could actually be charged under that Computer Misuse Act. Sometimes I don't think that the punishments are harsh enough, but you can be charged. The thing too is this, that the damage, I think it was suggested earlier, the damage is oftentimes irreparable. So when you put something online, this is our culture in the Caribbean. Whoever gets to you first, you're more than likely going to believe. So if you share information about me, don't care how good my defense is, most people are still going to hold on to the fact that I always knew he was like that. You with me? And they will run down the road with it. As we say, they will put on shoes and socks and run down the road with it. Hello? They will embellish it. They will say, yes, that's why, and they will talk all kind of different things. By the time you have been proven innocent, it doesn't really matter to some people. Because some people will even argue, they just didn't have the evidence, and they will find a way to still be able to vilify you. So you can see how damaging something of that nature is. There was the lady who created an entire blog, social media blog, based on a bad relationship that she had with someone. And she plastered his face all over the thing, and and now all it is people would send in information on things that they would always have this scoop on something, and now she has made a social media presence just on that because of a bad relationship that she had with someone. That ought to be good enough information for you to figure out you need to be very careful who you get involved with. Yeah. So she's just plastering it all over the place. That man has been vilified for the rest of his life. Then there's the online. Back home we call it harassment, but these days I realize that we're calling it harassment. I'm not too sure where that came from, but we call it harassment still. So online harassment, which is repeatedly sending, threatening, insulting, or abusive messages. So the person is consistently going at them. But then there's cyber stalking. There are people who are actually stalking you. Now, I know sometimes we joke about it, where we think that, they're always watching my posts. I could tell that they're always on my page. I could tell that they're always on my profile. We might joke about it, but there are actually some people who actually do this, seriously do it, and they're following you. So again, we advise people not to share every single detail of everything that's happening with you. Is that all right? You can't afford to put every single thing that's going on in your life online. Hello? Every single thing. You know how many meals I'm tired of seeing? Man, eat the food, man. Just eat the thing and stop posting it. Every single thing we post. And we don't recognize the damage that it could do. Right? Be careful, because there are persons who might very well be watching you. They know when you've left the house to go on vacation. Hello? They know. Here we are, off to vacation for the next 6 weeks. And they say, 6 weeks? I have 6 weeks to break in this house. And camp too. Yeah. To eat out the whole fridge and everything, and then, so you got to be careful with what you're posting consistently. And then there's something called revenge porn. So you're in a relationship with someone, you forgot all those videos that you took. Stupid, that's what you call it. That's not what it was when it was happening. Yeah. And then things go south, go sour. And before you know it, you are plastered on as many juicy platforms as possible. Everybody with me? Again, choose very wisely with whom you form relationships, as well as the things that you do, because those things could haunt you. Now, here's the thing that I want to say here, right? And it is something I probably should say at this point. We still have to be very careful because we're in an AI environment. Everybody's with me? Everybody understands what I'm saying when I say so. You know, AI could take your voice, take your mannerisms, everything. Have you ever seen it? They might, after a basketball match, they would have LeBron James right on there, and he's saying, I don't know, these guys suck. I'm tired of playing with these guys. And it's actually AI generated. This is not something that he actually said. It wasn't something that they manipulated or did anything. They actually create it. They actually create it. In very recent times, it was about 2 years ago, there was a couple who they would do interviews, etc. with people. That's what their job was. They would do interviews and everything. And they found themselves actually on a program that they never did. They never did the program, never sat for one of the interviews, nothing of the sort. And there they were on this program, and they could hear clearly their voices being used on this radio program. And they're like, oh, wow, they didn't recognize AI. So when you stand behind a podium, when you stand in front of a reporter, when you stand, anything is possible coming out of that interview. You with me? Even now, as a preacher, I've got to be so careful because people will pick out the clip that they want and put it together with something else and say, this is what you said. That was your response to this question. So it can easily happen now in this AI environment. Artificial intelligence has taken this thing to a different level, folk. So it could actually sound, this is the thing, the message that comes over the phone, the voice note, could actually sound like you speaking to your child. I just said it. You with me? It could sound like you saying to your child, meet me this place. I don't have my car. I'm going to be in a black car. You just get in. And it could sound like your child actually doing this. Whoa, that just turned in a different direction, right? Which means then that you have to be able to do like what is done right now with the banks. The banks will send you an email or have a conversation and say, we will never ask you for your personal information online. We will never, you know that, right? You have to create those protocols now between you and your children. Mommy will never send you a voice note to meet her anywhere. I will call you and we will speak and discuss and you will be able to talk back to me. Simple. Easily done, right? Because if we don't create these protocols and have these conversations with our children, what will eventually happen is that many of our children will fall easily prey because it looks real, it sounds real, and children don't give the kind of attention to things that you would. So the child is not going to say, but mommy didn't have on orange this morning. She's probably not even going to remember that. Just listening and seeing your face and saying, okay, this is what mommy is saying. I'm gonna head out. You still with me? You see how real it is? It is a space that you have to be able to manage. So if you can't manage it, imagine that our children will not be able to manage that space. I hope you're with me, because it's extremely important. Now, there's also the exposure of personal information. People take your information and they use it. So there are many apps that ask for permission, but there are many that don't. You know that? And whatever information you give them, they can use it. They will use it because you're using their app. They can use it. So there are times when you will get an email from some place that you have absolutely no idea. There are times when you never signed up for anything, you never subscribed to anything, but you consistently get emails from this site because the information is out there. Now, I know that I'm speaking to a generation. I know that I'm speaking to a generation that is already freaked out when it comes to anything social, and freaked out when it comes to anything with the computer. I was sitting at home. We were having lunch, family lunch, and my mother-in-law was there. And as we were going through the thing, I was sitting, and this was during the heat of COVID. And we were sitting, and I sat down, and I said, "Oh, shit, I forgot to pay the bills." And I went on the phone. All right, bills paid. Good. And I put down the phone. And my mother-in-law asked, "What just happened there?" I said, "I just paid the bill. I paid electricity and the water bill." And she said, "On the phone?" I said, "Yeah." She said, "Not me. I ain't doing nothing, so not me." And she is doing absolutely no online thing. Today, yes, she is at least watching services online and those kind of things, but she isn't doing anything that goes too far as she's concerned. So we don't want people to ever get to that place. I want to suggest this to you, that whether you believe it or not, people know where you are. Hello? People know where you are. They can track you. You don't need the mark of the beast to be tracked. They can track you. They know where you are. Every single time they know where you are. Law enforcement knows where you are. They can find you. There are all kind of things everywhere. There are cameras all around. CCTV cameras all around. There are things that are, listen, how many of you have a phone? Anybody here? Everybody has a phone? They know where you are. How they know where I am? I can go get rid of the phone. Get rid of the phone, they can find the other way to find you. It's just that the phone is the easiest. So they know where you are. Everybody's with me? So don't start getting freaked out about those kind of things. They could find a photo of you. They could, all those things. They can get those things. It is now managing that experience that matters. Managing that experience. Knowing now that, okay, there are people out there, but how much will they know about me? Something that is easily affordable to everybody. We can find your postal code. We can find where you are. Everybody still with me in the room? We can find where you are. So that is easy peasy. But what are you going to do now with the information? How are you going to manage the information? That's the important thing. And managing it now is the second tier now of what I would want to call awareness. All right, that's the second tier. So what is then this cyberbullying now? Cyberbullying now is that the slide of the map? No, sorry. Right. Cyberbullying now is the use now of the digital platforms, again, the social media, text messaging, all that, to do what? To harass, intimidate, or harm others. Unlike traditional bullying, which occurs in person, cyberbullying can occur 24/7. I think the inspector said so. He alluded to that. I can bully you all day long, all week long, all month long, once I have access to you. You with me? I can bully you if I travel overseas. If I come back, it does not matter. I could torment you for the rest of your life. as long as I have. So there's some people who have actually taken themselves off of social media totally. Totally. Because of that. They just don't want to be there. There's some persons who receive friend requests on Instagram. Oh, you have to ask to follow me. Otherwise, I'm not allowing you to. Now, this one now that's annoying me because you can't ask me for a friend request when you have your Facebook profile locked. That doesn't make sense. Or no picture. I gotta be able to determine if I will make you my friend. And I'm gonna search through every single thing and see who your friends are too. So I don't have access to anything. You have on all these permissions, but you're trying to be my friend. Devil is a liar. No, you will not be my friend today or any other day. So there are things that we have to manage. Everybody's with me? You still have to be able to manage those things. But watch this. Unlike traditional bullying, as I said, it is a 24-hour operation, and the harmful content can be shared wildly and quickly. So I can put it up there and I can have it shared in a matter of moments. Poof. Some of the social media apps are catching up. So what they're doing is that they're not allowing you to share certain things with multiple contacts. Contacts is the word. With multiple contacts at a time. So before you could actually share a WhatsApp message and you could tag a whole set of people and then just hit this thing out and 100 people get the message one time. Now you could only do it 5. And AI is behind there now checking the message to see if the message needs to be flagged. You didn't know that part. So all the apps are coming now with AI built into them. Somebody will say, "What? How can it be AI is built into them?" That isn't true. Start writing a WhatsApp message. I laughed the other day when WhatsApp said, "We don't read your messages. We don't." They published. Y'all saw that? They published this thing saying, "We don't read your messages. We don't know what your content is. We are a safe platform." And I laugh all the way to the bank. Because all you have to do is to start typing a message and you will start to see that they finish it for you. They finish it for you. Predictive text is AI. They're finishing it for you. So if they're finishing it for you, it means then that they are reading it. It is being read. So everything, there's no privacy in anything now, really and truly. Every single thing that you will be exposed to, once you put it there, it is there and anybody can be using it. So they're trying to control some of these things because information share can be very damaging. Can be extremely damaging. There are things that are happening internationally. If you think about it, in some government organizations, there's certain social media platforms that have been shut down. You can't use them. If you're in the first world, certain social media platforms you can't use. If you're a part of government, you can't use them because they know that the security is extremely poor and that the information could end up anywhere. Wish those guys the other day found that out. Then we wouldn't know their war plans. Somebody will get that when you get home. It makes it especially damaging as victims can experience ongoing attacks even outside of the school or the social setting. So even though we've left school, I can still be attacked. So this is the thing. Something could happen right here in Road Town. And in a matter of minutes, you are the other side of Tortola or probably overseas. In a matter of minutes, you get the scoop. Has that ever happened to anybody? It is almost as though you are right there. And this thing is posting. So I posted a flyer on an event that is coming up shortly. And somebody sent me the same flyer and said, "I just received this from New York." and I posted it in Barbados. You with me? Less than half an hour, he received it, and it was already making the rounds. All I'm saying to you is this: that information, once it is shared, there's no pulling back. Have you ever thought that you deleted something and it showed that you deleted it, but then you realize that somebody else still shared it? Because the internet is unforgiving. And sometimes you have to go to, I think it was officer again that said it, you have to go to the source to try to get it removed. By the time you try to get it removed, trust me, several people have already downloaded it. So it's still circulating. Let me tell you the way that this is birthed out often. You might see something and you share it, and somebody said, I saw that already. That was around 3 years ago. Has ever happened to you? And you thought it was new to you. It was new to you. But this was circulating 3 years ago, and then suddenly it came up again in circulation. Somebody has it again. So anything that is posted there will not be forgiven. People will know, and people will find it, and people will share it, and it will get around, it will spread, and before you know it, it's going to cause all the harm and damage. So this is what children need to know. And that is why, as you said, it is important that children in schools get to be exposed to these kind of things. These things can follow you in adulthood.
Thank you. There's absolutely no guidance on how any individual should interact with the internet. Is this, there's so many people now that use the term the University of Google. There are no guidelines. When my girls were born, I had a series of books. My mom even gave me a book from when I was born to read. And then she was a nurse. So she was able to give me, there was no internet. So she was able to give me the information. She came, taught me how to bathe a newborn, et cetera, et cetera. Hold on to her tight, Sally. She could slip out of your hand. There was no internet for me. My girls now is a completely different story. Just a comment.
Can I say this to you too? I want to add to that. I want to say this to you. You are usually your child's first source to the internet. You ever thought about it? When you purchase the tablet, the first tablet, or you gave them the phone, Mommy, can I have your phone? And they start playing the game on the phone. You are your child's first source. The child actually learns as much as you tell them about the internet from the time you give them the phone, from the time you give them the tablet. So if you tell them absolutely nothing, they're exposed to every single thing that is there. But they're only watching games. Seriously? There are reels and shorts and everything else now that are between the games and all that. By the time they move an odd thing and they're curious and they tap, sometimes they mistakenly tap something wrong or whatever, and they find themselves in spaces that they ought not to be. Children are exposed to things now because you are the first source. I'm telling you. We stopped giving them Legos and dolls and those kind of things, and now we give them tablets. Yeah. I'm telling you. So we are the first source. So with that in mind, I don't want to ask any other institution to do the first teaching and training of my child. I'm going to take the personal responsibility. So the same way, when your child is 16, 17, and you say, okay, you know what? You can drive now. You can drive. You tell your child you can drive. And you take the key and you say, you're 18 now. Here's the key. What do you do first? You just take up and go buy a car and go and hand it to your child and say, go drive. No, what do you do? They have to be taught and everything else. But then you also go for the first drive with them, not so? You make sure that they're comfortable. You tell them about safety. You give them all of the advice. You tell them the things that they ought not to do and the things that are best to do. You tell them where they should go. All of those things. If they say to you, and the first drive is at night, some of you are in panic. Night, I don't know. Because you think to yourself that is not necessarily the best. So something like driving a car, you take all of that attention in doing. But we hand over tablets and we don't. What is interesting is this, that it is so much less likely that they're going to get into an accident than that they will find damaging information online. You ever thought about that? They're going to be exposed probably within the first couple days to things that you would not have allowed them to go to. But they will drive, they may bump the car a little bit or something like that, but they surely will not. Most times, I mean, there might be some sad stories out there, but they will surely not find themselves in an accident within the first couple days of driving. Because they're going to be super careful. The problem with the internet is that the internet does not allow you to be super careful on your own. There will be things that just pop up. Everybody's with me? So you have to be careful with that. I am starting to feel as though I'm not going to get too far. But because the interaction is good, however. Cyberbullying, the key characteristics, harassment. Harassment, repeatedly sending hurtful, threatening, or insulting messages. Then there's the outing, which is sharing embarrassing or private information about someone online. And then exclusion, intentionally excluding someone from an online group or activity. And this one, sometimes it's not spoken of a lot, but that one is just as harmful as they're in the group and they're being bullied. So you could be bullied by not being included. You with me? It's the same thing. All that is using an online space for the same cafeteria experience. Where when you start to walk over, we move the chair or we all get up and move and leave you there by yourself. It's the same experience. Same experience. Children are walking through this. Only then they realize that there's actually a group, probably days after. And impersonation, pretending to be someone else online to hurt their reputation or relationships. And I just told you about what could easily happen now with AI. And then there's the trolling. I joke sometimes, some of my friends, and they say, man, you trolling on my thing. Try and get off my, if I put a status up or whatever, they would make, and I'm joking, but there are people who actually sit down and do that all day long. Who find your space and they just want to torment you. And they're doing all that they can do to say something about whatever is happening. There are people who sit down and say, this will be my job. Right? This will be my job. So the difference now, let's talk a little bit about the differences between cyber abuse and cyberbullying. The key differences happens on the lines of severity and intent. So cyber abuse is often more malicious and intentional. While cyberbullying, So cyber abuse is oftentimes more malicious and intentional, while cyberbullying can sometimes be as a result of ignorance or peer conflict. It could easily happen. Cyber abuse involves a more deliberate attempt to control, dominate, and harm the victim. Look at the long-term effects now. Cyber abuse can cause long-term psychological damage, such as trauma and post-traumatic stress, especially if the abuser engages in sustained manipulative behavior. There are people right now who are locked down in their homes because of cyber abuse. They don't want to come out and interact with anybody because of cyber abuse and the messages that would have been shared about them. So we have in our Caribbean context what we call a 9-day wonder. Y'all know about 9-day wonder? A 9-day wonder is simply this. Something happens and it takes 9 days before nobody remembers it. 9-day wonder. That's what you call it. 9 days, nobody will ever remember it after. That is not the case, unfortunately, with cyber abuse. It is remembered. It is remembered. I remember years ago, we were talking about this type of abuse. Years ago, one of our most popular department stores in Broad Street, which is our main street in our city. Someone was involved with someone, they broke up. And the guy took photos and stuck the photos of his ex all along on the front glass of the store. And people for the whole day just passed by and looked at these photos and laughed. The thing about it is this, I heard about it, but I never saw one of the photos. But the likelihood today of you knowing and seeing the photos in a matter of minutes is so much greater. You with me? So what happens is this. She may not have even seen them. So even if she didn't see them, it probably would have been a gloss over. After a while, she will get over it. Some people will not see, so she will still have some spaces that she can get away with. But the problem is, when people are seeing these photos now in a matter of seconds, it becomes more traumatic because the abuse is sudden. It is damaging. It creates a shock to your system. You weren't expecting it. One day you walked into your workplace and you saw everybody giggling. Everybody with me? And you did not know that the giggles were all about you. So if as an adult we are struggling with this, what do you think children struggle with? You with me? Very recently, my wife, who is an educator, she was dealing with a similar issue. And it has become very, very, very challenging to manage it because the young lady has become violent. She's trying now to fight back and everything. She's insistent on trying to get to know who these persons are that are doing this and those kind of things. And what is damaging about it is sometimes the adults need to manage these things a whole lot better. As adults, we need to manage them a whole lot better. Because while I protect one, back to the question that was asked, while I protect one, I need to recognize that in protecting one, I make the other one feel even more disadvantaged. Everybody's with me? Let me say it to you straight up. Sometimes it depends on whose child it is. Hello? You still with me? Because if it is the ambassador's child, I'm not going to deal with it the same way that I would deal with if it is Sister Smith from around the corner. And the children then suffer doubly because they feel now further disadvantaged because they don't feel as though there's any voice for them. These things bring children to suicidal ideations. They contemplate, there are lots of girls especially that are cutting, they're contemplating suicide and things like that because of this. And it seems to me as though a girl who is left out is a little bit more challenging than a boy who is. Girls deal with it a lot less better than boys would. So when they're left out of certain things, it is causing them all of these anxieties and you will start to see the effects. You will start to see the effects. You will start to see the effects. Look at some of the impact. I want to jump to this. I'm going to show you the impact. Look at the impact. Emotional and, did I skip something? No, I didn't. Emotional and mental health issues. Victims may experience depression, anxiety, and in some cases, suicidal thoughts or behaviors. The emotional toll can be deep, especially if the abuse affects their self-esteem, relationships, or social life. You know what it is that every single time you are excluded? Anybody ever felt excluded out of something? Even as an adult? It's harsh, isn't it? But now people are using social media, and what they do is that they make the victim, they vilify the victim, make the victim look awful. So it isn't just the exclusion, but it is now blaming them for something that they never did or saying something about them that never happened. And all this time, they're trying their very best to manage it on their own and not to get their parents involved. I learned this. Let me tell you this. We were talking about relationship earlier, right? I learned this, that there's some children who will never get the parent involved, especially when they know the parent is just going to blow off the top and not think things out and say, they're going to be rational. So they will never get. So you see you and you say, listen, if I ever hear about it, I coming down there. That is usually a signal for me not to tell you. Because if you're going to come down there, you're going to further embarrass me and you're going to make things worse for me. You with me? All of this you have to be managing. You have to be managing it extremely well. Isolation speaks for itself. Isolation, as I said, from the online communities, but also from real life interaction. There's always this fear or shame that they have. They don't want to be a part of anything. No, this is the irony. The things that they wanted to be so much a part of, eventually they start saying, I don't want to be a part of it. I don't want to be involved. So they want these friends, but when they're invited to a party, they don't want to go to the party. You have to ask yourself, why? Why is it that you don't want to go? Everybody still with me, right? Because of and then there's a lack of trust. The betrayal that is involved in cyber abuse. As I said to you, many times people are fronting. And as they're fronting, it means then that by the time they connect with these young people and you actually see who it is damaging also on them. How can we address it? As we close, I'm going to bring this in now. How can we address it? Somebody was talking about it earlier. Education and awareness. This is what we are doing right now. You're exposed to information now that you now get into a place where you can say, you know what? I need to be a lot more aware of this. As I said to you, in a workshop, we would go into group activities. We would do certain things and we would make sure that you can walk away with something tangible, because this is just sensitization. It's not going to go that deep today. But awareness, talk about it. We make too many topics taboo topics. Talk about it. Talk to your children about it. Why is it that everything has to be one big secret? Talk about it. Share. Let people know what's going on.
Is it possible the reason why most parents don't talk about it is because they themselves are not educated and they feel that they don't, if they say something to the child, for example, communication evolves and sometimes your child will say, we don't say that anymore. And, they try to tell the parents, you're old school, you can't. So some parents now have to deal with, would I be able to communicate effectively with my child to get the information across to them?
And it isn't just very possible, it is the reality. However, if you are going to be a good parent, you have to educate yourself in the areas that are necessary to be a good parent. Can I say that to you? You can't say you're a good parent and you don't know nothing about what's going on with your child. Again, if you're going to build a relationship, you have to be able. So you go now to the officer and the officer says, "Oh, ma'am, this has been happening, that's been happening, and we found these phones on your child, and everything is a surprise to you." Something is wrong. If every single thing is a surprise to you, every single time, you need to know what's going on. So it is your task to read up on these things, and not the same energy that we put in catching up on the series that we like, the Netflix series. Sometimes we need to take that same kind of effort. You with me? Yeah. In catching up on the information that pertains to our children. And so the binge watching sometimes might be binge learning. Mm-hmm. Let me take some opportunity. I would not see these opportunities and pass them. I jump online with several things that are being shared online and different things like that because I believe that I would want to be able to expose myself to the information that's necessary to be able to do the best that I can for my children.
And yes, and as you were saying that as parents, we have to sometimes spend time with our children and watch what they're watching too. Be like them. Because my daughter likes to watch Daman. And when she started watching it, I was like, you know, I started to listen to the program, and I spent a few times sitting down watching something. Now, Daman can be very underlined, you know. But what I do is I use it as a teaching tool. So we'd sit down, we would watch it, and then we would discuss. If you were in the position, what would you have done? What, you know, I use it as a form of discussion with her and make her learn how to, because in reality, we can't run away from it. They're going to watch it anyway. They're going to see it anyway. You can't tell them that, you know, run away from it. But you can use it too as a teaching tool to help them. I had another incident where I noticed she was listening to this song. And I'm in the kitchen here, and I like what I was hearing. But something told me to sit with her. And because, you know, suddenly the words pop up and you would know what the song is really saying. And when I looked at the word, I saw a language that wasn't pleasing to me. So I called her and we sat down. And she herself didn't realize it until I brought it to her attention. I said, "You realize what this is saying below her?" She said, "Mommy, I didn't realize that." And so I said, "You know, what do you think about this song now?" She can't play it. She can't listen to it no more because, you know. So we ourselves have to sometimes be like the children. I mean, maybe being a teacher makes me, you know, a little more understanding and realistic in being a child, person, in order to understand what my daughter is going through. But we have to understand that we cannot always be there with them, but when we are there, we need to learn to use those same things as teachers. They can't run away from it.
But also be aware that many times they know exactly what they're doing. Don't let them put anything over your eyes. Sometimes they know exactly what they're doing. There are some songs that are very catchy, and, you know, we see all the social media TikTok challenges and those kind of things, you know, and they're doing all that, shake it to the max and those kind of things. But when you listen to the full song, you realize what's being shaken to the max and the full works. They already know. Because from the time they say they like the song, they go on and they check the full lyrics, they play the whole song, they play over and over. They know the words. My son, my daughter, they know the words and those kind of things. I know that for sure. So this is what I've learned. I can't stop them from watching everything. I can't stop them from being exposed to things, but I can teach them the values that we uphold. And these things just don't fit into the value system. And that's the big difference. Because remember this, they're no longer just subliminal messages being sent. There are straight messages being sent to us concerning things. Dharman, as you said, is a very interesting one, because as much as it is very wholesome and everything, there are some messages that as a family we don't maintain. Certain things we don't ascribe to. So I have to be able to say, listen, these are things that we don't ascribe to. Because they will watch them, and they will watch them in all the full essence. And I'll be able to show them those ways. But that's what we do. Not necessarily just, because this is the thing, to cut children off of it is just as abusive, you with me, as anything else. So for you to just say, you ain't watching nothing anymore, that is abuse too. Hello, isn't that abusive? So your task is not to say, you're never watching this again. Your task is to be able to guide them and to give them the tools to be able to make the right choices. Once you give them the tools to make the right choices, moving forward, then there are things that they will personally say, I will avoid these. But if every single thing you keep saying, don't do this, don't do that, before you know it, you're probably the biggest abuser. And you didn't even recognize it. Yes, please.
Yes, Bishop. How do you explain denial when parents know that the child is involved in a particular behavior and ignores?
I could give you two options. You want both?
Both.
So we could nicely have the conversation with them and let them know, my dear friend, your child is a whole lot more advanced than you think. Because if you are actually hearing these things now, there are a whole lot of things that have already been done and said and watched and all that you are not a part of. I could do it that way. Or I could also do it the old time way. One slap and wake you up because you got to be sleeping. Full stop. You got to be sleeping. Listen, anytime a child is going to come to you with certain things or you watch certain things and all that, trust me, the child is already doing these things. So they're now comfortable enough to be playing the music in front of you. You with me? So don't be fooled. Don't ever be fooled. Sometimes people are the proverbial ostrich, head in the sand and pretending that nothing is happening around them. Don't ever get to that place. I said to you just now, my son told me that social media taught him about the birds and the bees. He told me so. He said he told me I was taking too long. He told me I was taking too long because I had it aged out. Everybody with me, I said, adolescence is probably a good time frame. Well, I said, Daddy, I already found out about the birds and bees a while ago, though. And from the time they did reproductive system in school, he found out.
For that matter, I believe that sometimes children learn from each other too. Because I remember that my mother, she was proactive. She taught me about sexual things, small enough, how you get pregnant and all of that. And
and it wasn't the ostrich.
No. Right. And when I'm explaining it to other children, they say, "Where you learn that?" And I said, "My mom told me that." They say, "She told you that already?" And they are bigger girls than me. And so I think that children learn from each other so much that you better don't be fooled that think that your child don't know something.
I'm glad. And you came from an era when the stork was responsible. That the stork brought the baby, right?
One of the things you touched on that reminded me, one of the things that we try to teach is values. And I would like you to maybe touch on that some more, because I don't really think that a lot of people realize how powerful values are and how we can use values to help equip our children to.
All right, so in a nutshell, the thing about value-based teaching is oftentimes scoffed at even sometimes by the church. Because the church believes that value-based teaching is contrary to scripture. I want to suggest to you that value-based teaching can be, all right, let me say it this way. You teach the values that are right there in scripture to your children. But you will not teach the exact practice, because some of the practices that were in the Bible are practices from ancient days. But the values and the principles in the scripture are what's the word I'm looking for? Transcendent is a good one, but they will last a lifetime. So you teach values. When you teach values, you teach children to be able to make wise decisions. You with me? Teach values and they will be able to make wise decisions. If you keep saying, and don't do this, and don't do that, and don't do that, they will get to a stage where they don't know what to do. And they will probably say, but this was not one of the don'ts that mommy said. So I can do this. So it means then that as a family, you have to determine where your value systems are, and you're teaching your children for life to make wise decisions all along life. And you're not just teaching your children to avoid problems. There's a difference, isn't there? If you teach me to avoid problems, I will keep dodging and doing all that, and I will never ever be able to chart a path forward. But worse yet, I'm not going to be able to teach my children anything because I wasn't taught anything to live by. So in teaching values, you teach skills to be able to navigate life. That's what you're doing. You're teaching them skills. What I've found is sometimes we think that it's just about the mathematics and all those kind of things that we're teaching. But no, you have to teach those core skills to get children to the next level of their development. You teach them core skills. You teach them about being a leader. You teach them about being able to make right decisions. You teach them about what will harm and not what will not, and those kind of things. And that way, you are developing the child now to be not just a good follower who will do everything that you say, but to be the child who will make wise decisions and navigate life well. Everybody's with me? And that's the difference. That's where now all of those other things come in. Folk, we can't go much further, but I want to just share these last two things with you. Digital security. This is another section in itself that I could actually build this out and teach a whole course on this. But digital security is critical. Here's the thing. I know it is a problem, and I knew it was a problem coming out of COVID. Because several people, we thought that because children had devices that they knew how to use the computer. And you know, we walked along saying, oh, these children, they're so technology savvy. No, they know how to use apps, social media apps, full stop. They know how to do that. That is all. Some of them struggled in school to get online and those kind of things because they did not know how to navigate technology. So now when you think about this, there's still people who are able to scam people by sending spam and sending certain things to people, and they're opening up everything. Opening up every single thing. We have adults who still struggle as to whether or not this email address is correct. Everybody still with me, right? Digital security is extremely important. It goes hand in hand with digital literacy. And every single one of us have what we call a digital footprint. So, that's what I was saying to you a little earlier. There are apps now that can trace you from other apps. So there are apps that can trace you from other apps. There are platforms that I can put in just a little information about you, and I can pull up almost everything. Most of you probably, unless you don't really go on the internet at all, most of you can be Googled. You know that? Can be Googled. I can go in Google and type in your name, and I can start to see probably one of the last things that you did publicly or whatever the case is. So there's no hiding. Unless you decide you're going to stay at home and be a hermit, there's no hiding. You can pull up everything. In fact, what you will start to find is that they pull up history that you don't even know. Yeah? So that's the reality. Legal protection, some countries are now working towards it. And then the support systems, obviously providing the support and things like that are necessary for our children. That's how we could address it. Cybersecurity tools. Cybersecurity is a major issue. And it is a major issue in our part of the world too. Major issue. There are tools that can obviously assist us in preventing and stopping cyber abuse. Software and things that we can put on our children's tablets. Do you know that you can actually have controls on your child's tablet that everything that happens, you actually know what's going on? I know most parents know that when it comes to their credit card. So they got real good controls on their credit card because you don't just buy in anything. I never forget my son got his first Xbox that way. He went online and my card was on the Amazon Fire that he had, and he tapped and he bought his first Xbox out of me. And it appeared before you run there, when it appeared now as a notification that this box was at the in Barbados, on its way to Barbados, and I need to make my first payment, is when I recognize where an Xbox is on its way. An Xbox that I never ordered. Everybody with me? And when it got here now, by that time, obviously, I'm fuming. Fire is coming from my ears. I am ready. And they got here, and I took it, and I said, you're not getting this, and all that sort of thing, and then he got it for Christmas. Because it didn't make any sense holding on to it after all of the frustration, but then that was a teachable moment where we sat down and we had thing. But this is what he said to me. He said, Daddy, I want to tell you this. I really did not know what I was doing. When I saw it and I tapped on it, when I saw it go through, I was so scared. I didn't know how to say it to you, Daddy. I think I just ordered. And I said, but if you had said it to me, I could have stopped it. But he waited to see if it was really going to come true or not. And guess what? It came. And guess who paid for it? I did, right? But those are moments that you sit down and you smile about. But as caregivers, it is our responsibility. You were about to say something.
He said to me, Mommy, I need your card number because, they asked for some PIN number. I'm like, what you need my card number for? Yeah, because I was going to buy this thing and they asked me for your number. But lucky for me that it needed the secret code.
It needed, the security code.
Yeah.
Okay. So their parent, if they ask you for your number, they're about to use it. Just letting you know that. Please don't hand out those kind of things. And then too, I'm always saying to him, the platform is important. Because he is a swimmer and he's traveling, we had to get a credit card for him. So the credit card is attached to his mom's credit card. So we had to get a credit card for him. Because, say for instance, he was overseas for a high performance camp and they would not take cash. So we had to then give him a credit card. So there's somebody here saying, what's he doing with a credit card? I know that will always happen. But we had to give him it because that was the only way that he can make payments. And then when he's traveling through the airport, if he has to pay for luggage or do anything, they're not taking cash. Everybody's with me? However, we had the discussion about the card. We had the discussion. So he got a rude awakening the other day where there was this offer being pushed around in Barbados about items that were at the port and through the post office, and that you can go and you can purchase them, and it's just $4. So he said, what, just $4? Daddy, look at this. This is a deal. I said, be careful with that. He said, man, no, Daddy, this is a deal. Man, $4 is just $4. I got $4. And he bought it. I mean, in less than an hour, there was a notification that came up from government saying, if you see this thing, and I looked at him and I said, I am going to resist the temptation of saying, I told you so. I told him that. But he said, but come on, man, Daddy, man. Anybody would have fallen for that. Eventually he got the money back. But what was interesting was this, that the transaction left now an indelible mark in his head. Because when he hears me say, let me check this out first, he now knows why I want to check it out first. And I would always say that to him, and he would think, man, you just don't want to buy it for me. But then he got the first-hand experience. See with me? At least it was only $4. Even if he had lost it, not a problem. But the issue really is, again, teaching him the skills to make wise decisions. You are not getting my credit card information, full stop. All right? So caregivers, then, it is our responsibility. We need to consider getting training in these areas. You can't afford to remain clueless. There's more to today's presentation, but I'm going to bring this to an end. Are there any final questions, anything that anybody wants to?
So, you said legislation is behind. For the BVI, Inspector Bob, you said we're resource constrained. Community events are happening, but what does this look like now for future societies and communities? Because these young people are going to take the baton from all of us. What is future society going to look like?
Anybody cares to attempt to answer before I do?
Being an educator, I am very frightened for some of the things that I see, even coming from the small ones. If we don't take control, believe me, what she just asked there, it makes you frightened. The things that are coming from our children, how would I say, the behaviors that I'm seeing, it is very, very frightening. I've been in the I'm teaching for over 30-something years, and trust me, I'm ready to believe, because it's really hurtful, and it's not. And I think it's not so much our kids, it's we are adults, and especially the parents make it harder. To me, come to a point where you can't even tell parents about their children's behavior anymore, because it becomes like an offense, like you are offending them to even tell them about their children. It's tough. It's tough. It's really hard.
It is. So my question is, have we come to the place where digital literacy needs to be mandatory in schools?
Yes.
Have we come to that place? I think it needs to be a discussion that takes place sooner than later. That as early as possible, children need to understand digital literacy. And by the use of their same tablets and everything, they need to be able to understand it. Because right there, during online schooling, which was an emergency step, it wasn't meant to be the way that we were going to teach moving forward. But right there, a whole set of things started to unfold. Children started to misuse the technology. Messages were being passed and things like that while the teacher was in the class trying to teach. So my thing is, I think that we've come to the place where we need now to teach digital literacy as a mandatory course. And it needs to be just like we are teaching grammar, just like we're teaching mathematics, it needs to be dealt with at all levels moving through the school system so that children understand the dangers of technology. They understand firsthand. I think it has to be done in a very balanced approach where we don't just throw at them all the dangers, but they also see the benefits of technology. They see that technology can be used in a very wise way and it can be effective to them. But when we know we're faced now even with things like AI. So we're faced with AI, and AI is writing children's compositions for school. And you know that they can't write that composition. You with me? But that's coming school as the composition. It's doing projects for them. All those kind of things. I think that we are now to the very healthy place of being able to teach digital literacy in our school system, making it a mandatory course for children to follow through and making sure that it stays with them. Why? Why am I asking that it stays with them? Because just like anything else that they're faced with, it will continue to evolve. And this one technology is evolving so quickly. We need to make sure that we are always on the cutting edge with the children and that they're aware of every single thing that is happening. What will it mean for us? It means that we are consistently dedicating ourselves to this, but it also means that we have to, again, as I said earlier, take our heads out of the sand and recognize what is really happening around us. Digital literacy also needs to be consistently taught in the schools to the teachers too. You with me? They need to know what's going on and as many opportunities as we can get for parents to be able to think. Instead of bringing the parents together just to talk to them about money and fundraising, do these kind of sessions that give them the opportunity to learn and then they become not your enemies anymore. They become your allies. You with me? And working with you to make sure that the children are not exposed to these things.
A comment?
Yes.
One of the things I think that is necessary that adults, generally in our public sphere, need to understand this kind of literacy, because there are many parents, they don't want to They say, I don't understand this thing, and they don't try to know and understand any of it. And all of the adults, no matter how old you are, you need to try to understand what's going on the computer, because if you don't understand, you can't help them, because sometimes they are struggling. For that matter, I know of adults, I know of women who have been thinking that they were speaking to somebody who really loved them, and try to divorce their husband to go and marry somebody they don't even know, because they're chatting online with this person, and all the time the person exploiting their love life, try to exploit them. So people need, generally, the public needs to understand this thing.
I'm afraid, Mom, that you seem to have grown up on the other side. You know too much about these things. but you see, there's actually a case of a guy, and it was a television series, and he ended up in Barbados because he was talking to this person online who he fell in love with, and he was heading down to Barbados to marry the person. When he got there, it was a man. I can't remember the name of the cat. Right. I mean, y'all saw it then, right? And he ended up in Barbados, and it was a man that was down there, and he had no idea, and he was in love with this person and all that. The person never came, and then only after that he found out that it was a man. Now, all these photos that the person sent him and all that, he's thinking to himself, oh, he's in love with this person, and he's now getting a fresh start in life, and he's never found love like this before and all that. And the person was just pranking him, but then really got into it, and he invested a whole set of emotions into one big lie.
There's a case right now. It's a friend of mine from Lee College. His son's wife, the son told his wife, you stay at home and take care of the children. He was making enough money to take care of the family. The wife was home gaming, and she ended up gaming somebody in another state. And they got so locked in that right now they have a divorce, and she is with this guy. She actually left her husband and children and went to this guy she was gaming with. And, these things happen, and I don't understand how, how people can just, but it's reality.
Let me just give I had a friend who, same thing, said she fell in love with this guy online, and she was sending all her little money she worked for this man. I spoke to her. I said, this man is scamming you. I became her enemy after, but anyway, I had to say what I had to say. And what I did, I asked her can you give me the name of that same person? And I went online and I purposely searched for him, added him, and we started chatting, but I know my intention. And he started trying to get money out of me also. And, he must be my MoneyGram waiting still, because I did give him a wrong information. And then I turned her when he sent back a message and said, why did you lie to me? I said, because you need to stop cheating. And she was mad at me for telling her the truth, but that woman was sending every little penny I'm not asking you. I'm telling you. Every little money she had, she was sending right here in the BVI.
She wasn't mad. She was ashamed. I think that we've covered a whole lot today. As I said, even though there was a whole lot more that could be covered, probably next time I come down, next convention, we'll be able to continue the conversation. But one of the things that I think that we always need to be aware of is it is our responsibility to be aware. It is our responsibility to be alert. It is our responsibility to be informed. Nobody else. Everybody's with me? If we don't do it, I actually think on this slide, I actually have a slide there that says it. If we don't do it, if we don't make it our responsibility, we can't expect to be effective in this thing. It is our responsibility to do it. Yeah, somewhere there. Yes, there it is. Caregivers. What should we know? We must be aware, we must be alert, we must be available. If you do those three things, it'll make life a whole lot better. But it is our responsibility to assist in this fight. All right? And it is a tough fight. I think you heard what the police is saying. It's getting even more challenging for them. The cases are increasing. And this is not just their fight alone, but this is across the nations, the territories of the Caribbean. We need to do a little bit more as a church than just pray. We had some other things there that we can share, but we move beyond prayer and we can assist in a very tangible way. God bless you and thank you for this opportunity.
All right, wonderful, wonderful. Put your hands together, please, and give our presenter a very, very good hand for that information that he so ably presented. He held my attention from start to finish. Before I say anything else, just to let you know, don't run away. We do have refreshments downstairs after this. So I won't keep you any longer, but thank you, Dr. Burke. Thank you so much for coming with all of this wealth of knowledge. It's like you have a computer chip in your head. All right? And for everybody else, to everyone else who contributed in one way or the other, we have Inspector Bob still here. He gave us some information. He gave us, I believe he also gave us some statistics, right? And of course, Mrs. Crabb, who had to go. So I believe that we got our bellies full. And I'm so sorry you didn't get to finish, Dr. Burke, because there's so much more that could have been said. And I think his slides had some real solutions coming up, because I'm here now trying to figure out if my child is the bully. You know, I want to know how to handle my child who may just be the bully. So to God be the glory. And adults, stop sending your money to those prophets online, okay? Who bully you and tell you that you're cursed if you don't send it. Some people don't know better. All right, so without any further delay, can I invite you please to stand as we close in prayer? Gentlemen. Okay, let's pray. Lord, we just want to give you thanks today for your love, your grace, and your mercy that you extended to us. On this very important topic, God, you have always sent people to educate us, to inform us. And Lord, I pray that the information that we got today, it would not just go through one ears and come through the other, but we will put it to good use. I thank you for our speaker. I thank you for the wealth of knowledge that you have given him and his ability to share that in such a way, in layman's terms, so that we could all understand. Thank you for every person that came, every institution that's represented here today. Lord, we just want to give you thanks for this and all the other things that you are doing for us. Lord, I bless the food right now that is prepared. And I pray, Father, that when we meet again, Lord, that you would be here in our midst and cause things, oh God, to go even more fluently than what happened today. You would allow the presenter, oh God, not to be restrained or restricted by time. So we give you thanks now, God, in Jesus' name. Amen. Praise the Lord. Praise the Lord. And of course, thank you, Mother P. God bless you. Yes. I come into.
Hello. Hello.